I went over to my folks' house for our usual Sunday barbecue, same as we'd been doing for years. I brought a case of beer and some ribs. Mom was in the kitchen, putting together her potato salad, Dad was out back on the grill, and my little brother Shane was on the couch scrolling through his phone like always. Everything was normal until dessert. That's when Dad slammed the table and told me 60 grand was missing from Mom's savings, and they were sure I'd taken it. At first, I thought he was joking. I mean, how could he not be? But he had the bank statements, the withdrawal slips, everything. Even accused me of forging Mom's name. I could feel the blood drain from my face. Mom didn't say a word. She just stared at me like I was a stranger. My stomach twisted. Shane barely looked up from his phone, but then chimed in, his voice flat. "You just bought a new truck. You've been acting shady lately." I couldn't believe it. My own brother, piling on like that. They gave me an ultimatum. Pay back the money or never come back. No warning, no room for an explanation. I couldn't even process it. I just got up and left. Walking out that door, I felt blindsided, humiliated, and completely gutted. I went straight home and pulled up every financial record I had. Bank statements, truck loan documents, even paycheck stubs. There was nothing. Not a single unexplained deposit or withdrawal that could account for $60,000. It felt like a punch in the gut. I wasn't about to let this slide, though. I took a sick day from work and drove over to the bank where Mom kept her savings. I'd helped her set it up years ago, so I was still listed on the account. I didn't know what I expected to find, but I had to look. A branch manager named Brenda helped me pull transaction slips and printouts for the last 6 months. I watched the numbers and dates scroll by, trying to make sense of it all. Every large withdrawal had a signature that looked like Mom's, but something wasn't right. I pulled out a couple of old birthday cards Mom had written me over the years and compared the handwriting. It hit me in an instant. No way that was her signature. Whoever did this was faking it. I felt a rush of anger. How long had this been going on? How could they do this to her? To me? I asked Brenda if there was any way to see security footage from the dates those withdrawals happened. Luckily, the last few were still available. We sat down at the computer, and Brenda clicked through the files. The woman in the video was short, dark-haired, wearing big sunglasses and a hoodie. I stared at the screen, something in my gut telling me I knew her. Then it hit me. It was Shane's girlfriend, Melanie. I leaned in closer. Sure as hell, it was her. Brenda didn't seem to notice my reaction. She was still going through the footage, oblivious to the fact I was already piecing this together. Melanie had access to Mom's ID, knew her birthday, all her personal info. And she'd been hanging around our house a lot lately. Way too much for comfort. I remembered the way she'd been helpful with Mom, asking about her prescriptions and finances, always lurking around when she thought no one was paying attention. And then there were the trips. Shane had taken a couple of weekend trips to Reno with friends, trips I now realized were likely funded by all that stolen money. It clicked piece by piece. Shane and Melanie had been stealing from Mom, and they'd been setting me up to take the fall. I was the convenient scapegoat. I had to admit, I'd been acting like I had money lately, but buying a new truck didn't mean I was a thief. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about betrayal, the kind you don't come back from. I sat there staring at the screen, watching the footage again. Melanie's face was unmistakable. The sunglasses and hoodie couldn't hide her features. I'd seen her enough times to know. It was Shane's girlfriend, Melanie. I sat back in the chair, trying to breathe. This wasn't just a coincidence. She had to have known exactly what she was doing. I never trusted her completely, but I never thought she'd go this far. I remembered how Melanie had been hanging around the house a lot more the past year, always being helpful with Mom, asking questions about her prescriptions, her finances, always digging. She'd act like she was just being nice, but now I saw it for what it was, manipulation. And then there was Shane. He had a new gaming setup, and I'm talking top of the line, the kind of stuff we couldn't afford. He had also taken 2 weekend trips to Reno, always with friends, but now I saw the bigger picture. They'd been planning this, using the money to fund whatever they were up to. I thought about it, piecing everything together. Melanie was the one withdrawing the cash, but Shane was in on it. He was too quiet about it all, too complicit. I'd been looking for answers, but the more I dug, the more it became clear. Shane and Melanie had been stealing from our mother, and I was the fall guy. My chest tightened, and I had to resist the urge to throw my phone against the wall. How the hell had they convinced my own parents that I was the thief? I didn't know how to fix this yet, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let them get away with it. I stood up, pacing the small office in the bank, trying to clear my head. "Brenda," I said, my voice low. She turned to look at me. "Can I get copies of this footage? I need it for my records." She nodded, not questioning me. "Sure, let me print it out for you." I watched as she worked, feeling the weight of everything. Melanie, Shane, they were stealing from our mom, and now it was my job to fix it, even though I wasn't the one who'd messed it up. When Brenda handed me the prints, I felt a surge of determination. I wasn't going to be the scapegoat anymore. It was time to take control. I had a plan. It wouldn't be easy, but I had to expose them for what they were, and I wasn't going to stop until they faced the consequences. I got the copies of the surveillance footage and matched them up with the withdrawal slips I had from the bank. Everything lined up. Melanie's face was clear as day in those videos, and there was no denying she was the one taking the money. But I couldn't just walk in there with some footage and expect them to believe me. I needed more. I called Doug, a retired cop I knew from a few years back. He was solid, knew his stuff. "Doug," I said when he picked up, "I need to build a case, but I don't want to tip them off just yet." "Smart," he said, his voice low but steady. "You've got to cover motive, opportunity, and connection. And you need more than just the footage. You want to keep this out of court, right?" "Yeah, that's the goal." "All right, start with social media. Find anything that shows their spending habits, vacations, any lifestyle upgrades. That's the opportunity. Then look for anything that ties them directly to the stolen funds." I hung up with Doug's advice in my head. The first place I went was Shane's social media. Public posts, all of it. I scrolled through the photos, feeling my blood boil as I saw one after another. A shot of Shane and Melanie in Vegas, grinning with stacks of chips, the expensive flat screen they'd just bought, and a close-up of Melanie with a new designer handbag. All of it screamed, "bought with stolen money." I started screenshotting every damn thing I could find, putting it all in a folder. Then I went through Mom's junk drawer. That's where she kept important stuff, the odds and ends she didn't know what to do with. I was digging around for anything useful when I found it, her ID. I pulled it out, stared at it. The photo was the same, but the card was slightly different. I flipped it over. There was no wear and tear on the edges like there should have been from constant handling, and when I looked at the back, I saw it. The holographic security strip had been tampered with. Someone had replaced her ID with a duplicate. Whoever was pulling the strings had gone to the trouble of getting their hands on it, swapping it out, and using it for the withdrawals. It all fit. Melanie and Shane had planned this down to the last detail. I didn't waste any time. I started documenting everything. I took photos of the ID, screenshotted every post from Shane's social media, and made backup copies of the bank footage. I wasn't about to let this get swept under the rug. The more I gathered, the clearer it became. This wasn't just a few bad decisions. This was calculated. They'd thought they could get away with it, use me as the fall guy, and walk away with my mom's money. But they'd underestimated me. I wasn't going to let them destroy my family, not like this. I made one more call to Doug. "I've got it all. I think it's time to move forward." "Good work," he said. "Now you've got the leverage. Time to make them own up to it." I called my folks and told them I needed to talk. Just them, no Shane. They agreed without hesitation, probably thinking I was going to apologize or explain myself. Instead, I showed up with everything. When I walked into their house, I laid it all out on the table. Surveillance stills, forged signatures, the duplicate ID, and the screenshots of Melanie flashing cash. I watched my dad's face go from confusion to disbelief, his eyes flicking back and forth between the evidence. He didn't say a word for what felt like an eternity. Then, he finally looked at Mom. "We owe him an apology," he muttered. It hit me like a freight train. He'd actually said it, but it wasn't enough. Not nearly enough. There was still too much to untangle, too much damage already done. Before we could process what had just been said, the door creaked open, and Shane walked in, followed by Melanie. Shane froze when he saw what was on the table. His eyes darted from the photos to the ID to the bank footage I'd set up on the laptop. "What is all this?" he spat, his voice defensive and way too quick. Melanie, standing next to him, played her part to perfection. "What's going on?" she asked, her tone innocent, but her eyes flickering nervously. I didn't say a word. I just hit play on the bank footage. The screen flashed to Melanie's face, the unmistakable image of her at the bank, withdrawing the money. Shane's face turned red. "That's not me," he muttered. "It's her. She's the one doing all this." Melanie snapped back before I could respond, her voice shaking with fake outrage. "You told me it was your mom's gambling money, Shane. You said it was fine." I could feel the anger rise up in my throat, but I kept my composure. "This is your mess, Shane. Your girlfriend, your lies. Don't try to twist it on her now." The room turned into chaos. Shane and Melanie started shouting over each other. He kept accusing her. She kept defending herself. And it all blurred together into a whirlwind of anger and blame. Mom was crying now, her hands wringing together in her lap, as she tried to make sense of everything. "You both used me," I shouted over the noise. "Used me as your scapegoat. Took advantage of Mom. You think I don't see that?" Shane's eyes were wild. "I didn't do it. I didn't know." "Bullshit," I cut him off. "You knew exactly what was happening, and you did nothing. You let her steal from Mom, and you stayed quiet while they blame me for it. You're not innocent in this." Melanie glared at me, then shot Shane a look like she was daring him to side with her. "You don't know what it's like, okay? We had to do something. It wasn't like we were just taking money for nothing." I was done listening to her excuses. "I don't care what your excuses are. It's simple. Pay Mom back or I'm calling the cops. Your choice." The tension in the room was suffocating. Mom looked utterly defeated, her tears falling freely now as she clutched the edge of her chair. My dad was silent, his face drawn tight, but I could tell the wheels were turning in his head. He didn't say anything, but I saw the shift. "I'll go to the police, Shane," I repeated, my voice steady. "Don't think I won't." For a moment, no one moved. Then Shane crumpled, his shoulders shaking as he started pleading with Mom. I didn't know it was getting this bad. Please don't make me go to jail." It was like watching a man break down right in front of me. The sight made my blood run cold. For all his bravado, for all the ways he'd played me and Mom, this was the moment it all came crashing down for him. But I wasn't moved, not by his tears, not by his pleading, not anymore. "You didn't care how bad it got when you were living off that stolen money, Shane. You sure didn't care when they were blaming me, did you?" He wiped his face and looked up at me. "I'm sorry. I fucked up. I'll make it right. I swear." I shook my head. "Sorry doesn't fix this. You're going to make it right, or you're going to jail. And if you think I'm bluffing, you don't know me at all." Melanie stood there, arms crossed, silent now. She realized she'd lost. "I'll get it back," Shane muttered, voice breaking. "I'll pay her back. Just don't turn me in." "You better," I said coldly. "You're going to fix this, or you're going to regret it." Mom's sobs were quieter now, but they still stung. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. But at least now, there was a chance to make things right. I gave them two options. Either I press charges and let the cops handle it, or Shane and Melanie pay back every single penny, and she stays away from Mom for good. Dad didn't waste any time. He pulled out a notepad, scribbled something down, and slid it across the table to Shane. "Sign it," he said, his voice firm but tired. Shane looked at the paper like it was a life sentence. He hesitated for a second before grabbing the pen and scrawling his name. Dad made sure to lay out every detail. Shane would repay the full amount in installments, and he had to go to therapy for his gambling problem. Melanie, of course, wasn't having any of it. She stood up with a furious hiss. "This is bullshit," she yelled, her face red with anger. "You can't just ruin my life like this. I didn't do anything wrong." She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. Good riddance. Shane slumped in his chair, wiping his face. I didn't know how bad it had gotten," he mumbled, his voice cracking. "I swear I didn't know. Please, Mom, forgive me." I watched him, but I didn't feel anything. He was a mess, but that didn't matter. Not anymore. He never once tried to defend me when they were accusing me. Not once. That said everything. Mom didn't say anything right away. She just looked at Shane, her face a mix of sorrow and exhaustion. She was drained. I finally broke the silence. "This isn't about money anymore, Shane," I said, my voice calm but steady. "You can pay Mom back, sure, but that's not the point. The point is, you lied. You let me take the fall for this. You let me get blamed for something I didn't do. You let Melanie do whatever the hell she wanted, and you didn't stop her. You let this whole thing spiral out of control." Shane opened his mouth to speak, but I held up my hand. "No, you don't get to explain yourself. You don't get to make excuses. What you did was unforgivable, and I'm not sure I'll ever trust you again." His eyes flickered with guilt, but there was no apology in them. He couldn't even look me in the eye. Mom reached across the table, her hand shaking as she touched his. "You have to try, Shane. We can fix this, but you have to really fix it. I need to see that you're serious." He nodded, his voice weak. "I will. I swear. I'll do anything to make it right." I didn't say anything else. There was nothing more to say. They could go through the motions of repairing things, but I knew the truth. Trust, once broken, wasn't so easily put back together. I stood up, feeling like the weight of the whole damn situation had settled into my chest. "I'll believe it when I see it," I muttered, turning to walk out. I wasn't in the mood for more apologies, more promises. I had already made up my mind about Shane. There was no going back from this. Mom looked at me one last time before I left, her eyes full of regret. "I'm sorry too," she whispered. I just nodded. I didn't have it in me to say anything more. When I left, the house was quieter than it had ever been. I didn't know what the future held for Shane, for Mom, or for me, but one thing was clear. Things would never be the same. In the weeks that followed, things didn't magically fix themselves. Mom started treatment for her early-stage dementia, and I helped her find a specialist who could guide her through it. It wasn't easy, but she was still Mom, stubborn, strong-willed, but fading in ways I couldn't ignore. I stayed involved, making sure she got to her appointments and kept up with her medications. She didn't deserve to be caught in the middle of all this mess. As for Shane, he got a second job detailing cars. I wasn't sure if it was out of guilt or just to keep himself busy, but he sent me photos of his pay stubs every week. He made the repayments, slowly but surely. It didn't undo everything, but it was a start. Maybe he wasn't as lost as I thought. Dad, though, he still didn't get it. He kept his distance for a while, not knowing how to approach me after everything. It wasn't until one night, when I was helping Mom sort through some bills, that he finally came to me, face to face. "I should have known better," he said, his voice low, eyes avoiding mine. I was just scared. I didn't want to believe Shane could do something like that. I stood there, watching him. He didn't sound angry. He didn't even sound defensive. He just sounded tired. It hit me then. This was the moment he finally understood how deep the damage ran. "I get it," I said, not sure if I even meant it. "But it's not just about Shane. It's about the way you've always let him get away with things." Dad didn't argue. He just nodded. "I see that now. I didn't want to face it. You were always the responsible one, and Shane, he just kept getting a pass." That was the truth. Shane had always been Dad's golden boy, the one who could do no wrong, the one who could get out of anything with just a half-hearted apology. Meanwhile, I was the one left holding the bag. We sat down at the kitchen table, and the conversation kept going, unearthing things I wasn't ready to hear. I didn't hold back, talking about the years of favoritism, how it had shaped everything, my relationship with them, my relationship with Shane. I'd spent my whole life trying to prove I was worth just as much, but it was always easier to make excuses for him. "I don't know how to fix this," Dad said, his voice rough now. "I don't know how to make up for all that time I took you for granted." "Time doesn't just get fixed," I said quietly. "You can't erase what happened, but at least now you see it. That's something." We didn't hug it out. There were no tearful apologies or emotional breakthroughs, but it felt different somehow. At least now he wasn't pretending like everything was fine. At least now he saw me. I still kept my distance. I didn't want to forget everything that had gone down, and I wasn't sure how to trust any of them, not yet. But I made sure Mom was looked after. That was the only thing that mattered to me. She didn't deserve to be collateral damage in this broken mess of a family. Shane was trying, in his own way, but I wasn't sure I'd ever get past what he'd let happen. Not yet. Maybe not ever. About 6 months later, I showed up at my parents' house for a quiet Sunday dinner. Just Mom and Dad. Shane wasn't invited. The evening was simple, nothing fancy. Mom had made her usual roast, and we sat at the table eating. The conversation easy, but guarded. There was a kind of calm now, something that hadn't been there before. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. After we finished eating, Dad stood up and walked over to me. He handed me a small envelope, and I could see the hesitation in his eyes. "You deserve better than how we treated you," he said, his voice low but steady. I took the envelope from him, feeling the weight of it, and opened it slowly. Inside was a letter, handwritten. As I read it, I could feel the years of anger and frustration rise in my chest. It wasn't much, but it was honest. They admitted they'd jumped to conclusions, and there was a line in there about being proud of me. "This doesn't fix everything," I said, looking up at Dad. "But it's a start." He nodded, not expecting anything more than that. Mom, who had been quiet the whole time, reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I always knew you'd do the right thing. I just forgot how to see it." That hit me harder than I thought it would. I didn't cry, but it was close. I sat there, holding her hand, letting the words sink in. Shane was still working off the debt, last I heard. He'd taken responsibility in his own way. Melanie was gone, out of the picture for good, and I was thankful for that. The damage they'd caused would take time to heal, if it ever did. I wasn't looking for revenge anymore. I didn't need it. What I got was better. The truth and the respect I should have had all along. Blood doesn't mean loyalty, but standing up for yourself, that changes everything. I looked at Mom and Dad, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like they saw me. Not as a scapegoat, not as the one who always did the right thing because no one else would, but as their son. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough.